As soon as Edward Snowden leaked information about the NSA spying on us, of course, there were a number of people that were actually supportive of it. Well, if you don't have anything to hide, you don't have to worry about anything. Well, it turns out that even if you are following the rules, the NSA is spying on you, and maybe not because of national security. Take a look at what Jessica Yellen had to say.
The National Security Agency scandal just got a little weirder. According to reports, NSA officers admitted using the agency's eavesdropping powers to spy on their own romantic partners and spouses. Since those revelations, the hashtag NSA pickup lines created a storm on Twitter. Users are tweeting their own jokes and lines, and the most common NSA pickup lines on Twitter are actually song lyrics that should be very familiar, at least to some of us who are old enough to remember. Hundreds of users have been posting the lyrics to the Police song, Every Breath You Take.
So the NSA has responded to this. They said that they found those individuals that were, taking advantage of the access that they have, and they discipline them. However, I should note that the full extent of these violations are unknown at this point because they resorted to self-reporting. So basically, there were NSA agents that had to do lie detector tests, and as a result, they came clean because they knew that they were abusing their power. So we don't know every single NSA agent that's using their power to spy on their lovers or whatever it is. But Jimmy, first question goes to you. I mean, isn't this a perfect example or a perfect rebuttal to what people say about how you have nothing to worry about if you're not doing anything wrong, it's not a big deal? Well, it turns out like if your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend is working for the NSA, they're checking your emails to see if there's a little cheating going on the side.
First of all, I'm shocked that is happening. I would think that all those millions of people who work for the NSA were perfect.
Yeah.
Also, again, it's exactly your point. People always say, well, I don't care if someone taps my phone, I'm not doing anything illegal. Well, I don't care about your phone, moron. I care about his phone. The guy who's actually standing up to power and doing something about it. So I don't want them tapping his phone and then planting something or putting some porn on his computer that there shouldn't be there. And then they go, oh, the guy's a kiddie porn. And then he's all, we found it out of that. That's the easiest thing to do is plant that on someone's computer now because they can do. So
that is so, I didn't even think about that.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
Yes.
And see, we covered you. But the horrible thing is that we're okay with it, right?
Yeah.
We found out 3 weeks ago now, Reuters reported that the NSA is listening in on our conversations, and when they find something illegal that doesn't have to do with terrorism, they're supposed to discard it. Well, they're not. They're taking it and they're giving it to the DEA, and then the DEA is then disseminating it to local law enforcement, and then they're also telling them how to cover up where they got the information from and to fix new to show that they got new facts. So my point being is the worst thing that we were worried about is actually happening. It's been reported by Reuters, and it seems like almost no one's talking about it. I saw Bob Schieffer go on his show the other day and pretend like that information isn't out there. He keeps repeating that false narrative that they're not listening in on your phone, it's just metadata. They are listening in, they are reading, and they are taking that information, and they are using it to prosecute you criminally.
Yeah, I think
stuff.
what you said about standing up to power, those who stand up to power are under threat, is probably the most important thing for us to keep in mind, because I also have heard a lot of people say, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. What's the problem? We need to keep our country safe. And my response to that is, what is safe about shredding the Constitution and your freedoms?
And the thing that really bothers me about this is if the majority of Americans actually believed in the democratic process and they believed in being politically active, then people would be up in arms because people would want to stir the pot. They would want to question authority. But the vast majority of Americans are so distracted by the bullshit they watch on television every day that they don't care what's happening. They're not planning on being politically active. People like us are worried because we're doing a show right now where we are questioning authority, and if we stir the pot too much, we might get targeted. We might get our emails, spied on, or our phone calls listened to, and it's a really, really big issue. I think the only way to solve this problem is to get Americans to be politically active. And how the hell do we do that, Mike?
Well, this idea of like, if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. But who's defining what doing something wrong is? During the Occupy movement, everyone who was politically active was doing something wrong, and then they were all this weight of the state was put against them. And so that shows you that people, ordinary people, do have something to worry about with this. I'm saying, how do you get people to be politically active around these issues? I don't think there's something that you don't write a leaflet that has the perfect motivation for someone to read, say, oh yeah, now I understand your argument, I will be politically active. That happens on its own. The contradictions in the society we live in force people into political motion, just like the Occupy movement, and just like movements before that. I mean, the immigrant rights movement and so forth. That's when conditions become bad, and then there's just some spark, some breaking point where there's some elevation in consciousness, and all of a sudden millions of people are moved into the streets. The spying apparatus that exists today, the militarization of the police, doesn't exist now because in this moment people are rising up in the masses. It's because the US government knows that potential exists, because jobs are going to continue to go down the tubes. Vacation days are going to be eliminated more and more. Living standards for people are going to continue to decrease, while the richest, 0.1% of society will continue to get fatter and fatter and fatter off of our backs. And so we don't have to do anything to get people to be politically active. That will happen on its own. We just have to be prepared for when that moment happens, and with that clarity and with that organizational apparatus, so we can be the most effective when those moments come.
I do want to say one thing, though. I do think that there is something that we can do, and that is within our educational institutions, is to encourage more critical thinking, starting in kindergarten. You can't really start too early with this. Instead, what we have a society where there is an attempt to depoliticize everybody, and the biggest distraction of all is probably the cell phone. Consumerism is the opiate of the people these days. When I ran for office, and I challenged Jane Harman as a peace candidate, I remember I was threatened with arrest for wearing a political T-shirt in a public park. I was told I could not have a forum at a public library in Los Angeles. This is, if anything, an effort to depoliticize and discourage any kind of critical thinking. So I think we have to take the reins back and also really encourage our students from a very early age to question authority.
And we're also victims of irresponsible media. I mean, we have a system of checks and balances, and I think, even though it's not in the Constitution, obviously, I think that the media should be part of that system of checks and balances. We should be questioning authority in our media. We should be focusing on stories that we're talking about at this very moment. But instead, you have, CNN, and you have people like Erin Burnett making fun of Occupy protesters because they don't know what their mission is. They knew what their mission was. Erin Burnett chose to make it seem as if their movement was not legitimate, that had no merit. And that's a real problem. I think education and critical thinking is definitely one part of it, and also having a media that holds politicians accountable is also a huge piece of that puzzle.
Well, the problem with the media, in fact, it is one of the 3 occupations, journalists, that's mentioned in the Constitution. So that's why it is so important to our democracy, and they have been falling down. The problem is that the people who Erin Burnett is supposed to be investigating and exposing, she's owned by, and David Gregory and Brian Williams, is owned by General Electric. Hey, Brian Williams, how many checks do you have to take from a defense contractor before you stop calling yourself a journalist?
Yeah.
I guess endless is the answer to that question, okay? Right. So you're right. That is, I think, almost all the problems that media is supposed to fix them. They're supposed to expose them. They're doing the opposite.
Well, not only are some of them afraid because their paycheck is issued by somebody who is doing exactly what they should be investigating, but I think there is this fear now among journalists.
Fear,
real fear.
Retaliation.
Of raids, of seizure of their records, of imprisonment.
And lack of
Glenn
access.
Greenwald blowing this, exposing what's going on with the NSA. David Gregory is asking him questions about insinuating that he should go to prison.
He should go to prison for journalism.
I think fear is very real.
It is real, and I should note, and I'm sorry we're running out of time, I should note that the fear of losing access is also a huge problem in the media. They want to get the interviews with these top officials, they want to get the ratings, but what good are the interviews if you're not going to ask the hard questions?